Welcome to The Empty Canvas, the podcast about how creativity begins. I'm the host, Pascal Anson, and today I'm joined by designer and maker, maybe costumier, Ruben Bø Dower.
Hello everyone.
Welcome. First of all, I planned what I was going to introduce you as. So we need to talk about whether, because in my mind I also had costumier, Ruben Dower, or designer of wearables.
That's quite fun.
But I think they're both a bit of a mouthful. What are you going with, or are you not pigeonholing?
Yeah, see, it really does change every 45 minutes, doesn't it? I was going as fashion designer for a while. I don't really feel like I fit within that, to be honest with you. I would say I like to say artist and designer because it allows me to be pretty.
But you make wearables a lot of the time. So let's leave it at that at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes. I think we should maybe also start by explaining how come we know each other.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while. We met when I was 18 on Kingston Art Foundation, and you were my tutor. And yeah, that's getting on 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's getting on for a while now, isn't it?
Yeah. You're a great tutor.
Thank you. So really, the purpose of talking to you, and what I'm really curious to find out, is about how your creative process starts. And I've seen you talk a bit on Instagram and on TikTok about where your inspiration comes from, and anime, video games, films, all that kind of stuff. Can you talk a bit about that?
I think kind of at its core, a lot of my creativity and my inspiration comes from posing fantasy worlds and sci-fi universes that kind of are contrasting with our own. I'm very, very inspired by video games, sci-fi, and drag. I would say those are my kind of three main, and they are all about, presenting the world in another way and taking agency over how you exist, but in a way that is very not everyday. I think that.
And why are you interested in that? Why do those things jump out? Were they a form of escapism as a child growing up, or?
I think it's a few different things. I think that there's that side of it, which is very much escapism as a child. I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I also kind of, as I got older, I felt less and less, I guess, like the people around me, and having things like video games and sci-fi were such a safe place for me. It was where everyone was different from one another, you know? I didn't really see a lot of representation of people like me, like brown kids and queer people and stuff like that. So I always loved the monster-y characters. Like on the Mario Kart selection screen, I was always Yoshi, or I was always Bowser, or Bowser Jr. or something like that. I was always the non-human ones, always the different ones. And
that's interesting.
And I think that they were very constant for me, and they offered me a lot of safety. And then when I discovered things like drag and drag race, that were people who were turning themselves into the images of their imaginations in order to match what was going on the inside and the outside. So that was really powerful.
Do you think if you're a kid that's moving around a lot, as you said, and you've got this constant world that doesn't change because it's either in your console or on your screen, that's somewhere that's your physical environment is changing, but your digital environment has got a place of safety and familiarity with characters.
Yeah, for sure. I was always someone who loved handheld games, and I didn't really deep it a lot until recently, but it was kind of, I could always have that thing that was mine with me wherever I went. No matter where I was, I could open this up and this was my safe space, you know?
So that's so interesting. How does it go from being something that is just something that you like doing, or a hobby, or how does that then turn into sort of creative inspiration?
I think that in the terms of inspiration, I think that sci-fi video games is very, very exciting because it, I guess it poses the question of what life can look like, both physically and
anything's possible, right? There's no gravity, there's no...
Exactly.
There's no kind of physical properties.
There's no conventions to fit within. Each world is different, and therefore anything can exist within that world. I think that in going out and about in real life, there are ways of existing. There are ways of looking normal, and there are ways of fitting in, but there isn't a way of fitting in that
So
world.
did you ever want to be a video game designer?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's something that I really do see for myself in my future at some point. I would love to design costumes for video game characters and design video game characters. I think that'd be really, really fun. I don't think it's where I'm at yet, but I think it would be something I'd love to kind of work on. For a long time, I was much more interested in the physical side of it, so the actual consoles. And that's when I studied product design, and I think that was kind of an inspiration leading into that kind of thing. I guess they were the portals into the worlds, and the video games themselves are the worlds. But at the same time, the way that I design clothes and costumes and characters, that is in my mind like I'm designing a video game character or designing a video game.
There's something I wanted to ask you about, because everything you've said so far makes a lot of sense about escaping to worlds and fancy situations where everything is possible and there are no conventions. But then I like just what you said then about the real world, and I love how you take that inspiration and then you translate that onto humans, or like regular people that become slightly less regular and a bit more kind of like interesting or fancy or can you talk about to me a bit more about this idea of translating that onto those characters onto people and what that does?
Yeah, absolutely. When I design looks and clothes and things like that, I don't really design individual pieces, I design it all as one. So I think about makeup with it, I think about shoes it would wear, accessories, the silhouette, ideally the kind of space it would exist within, whether it's like a shoe or just what I'm thinking about in my mind. And I think that the experience of wearing something or presenting yourself in a way that is in direct contrast with the way that one should express themselves in society, it's a crazy feeling and it's really, really exciting. It's not for everyone, and I like in a everyday sense, I really understand that. But when I, for example, put on a look and I do full makeup, because when I do makeup, I'll often paint myself different colors. Walking around, it's such a funny way that people perceive you because they don't really know how to react. Like, you are technically allowed to do that, but it's very much like
you can do anything.
Yeah, there's no rule book.
But what you're doing, you're not sort of taking a character like Darth Maul or Bowser and then just recreating that as a kind of cosplay. That's the starting point. That's the inspiration. How do you then deal with that visual and like massive visual information and energy and character and history and scale and digital format versus real world? How do you then do the next bit?
I think that I look for what I find really interesting within it, and I guess I combine it with the other things that I'm interested in. I'm queer, and I haven't. A lot of my inspirations are people who present themselves in very, very different ways, and that kind of form of authentic self-expression is really, really interesting to me. The way that your life experiences formulate how you live in the world and how you present yourself in the world. I, for example, think, like with Darth Maul, he's one of my great ones, one of my favorite from Star Wars, and he has these amazing body tattoos. And I'm not going to directly recreate him, but I think that he has a lot of things about him that are very, very interesting. The way that they sculpt his body, the way that the colors contrast with each other, and I can use elements of that and combine it with things that make me feel confident or that I think are cool and fun, like different silhouettes I can play with wearing clothes, or how I can make things look flattering to me. I think that with this kind of thing, it's really, really important to follow excitement and follow what makes you happy. I started doing makeup and fashion and all this kind of thing in the way that it exists now during lockdown, and that was at a time when I was in second year at uni, and I'd gone from having tutors and all of the other students' voices very, very prevalent around me to it was me by myself making things in my bedroom. And the only voice that became important was mine.
But how did you get to that point? Because I think a lot of people find themselves in creative isolation or just in isolation, and then they don't have any voice in there. And I love this about you had lots of noise, and that has an effect, right? And then you only have your own voice.
Yeah.
And how I don't know, it's difficult, but how do you get to that point where you kind of you single out that voice and trust that voice?
It's really hard, to be honest with you. I don't think that there's a super like linear, perfect way of doing it. I think it really comes down to just giving it a go. I do think that everyone to an extent has a voice like this within them. The things that you find interesting, the things that catch your eye, the things that make you feel excited. But I think that people get very, very, very bogged down by, if I make something, it either has to have a purpose or it has to be good, or there has to be a reason behind what I'm doing.
Better than the last thing I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it becomes really, really hard to consistently create them because you're not just using yourself as a channel. Rather, what you're doing instead is, oh, I have to do it for this reason. I'm overthinking this thing now.
I think a lot of people second guess and overthink and think a lot about, okay, I've got this blank page, empty canvas in front of me, and I want to see the finished thing before I start on this.
I'm doing it for the finished thing. You should, I don't think you should really do it for the finished thing. You should do it because you want to explore this thing that you find interesting. But I also think it's a muscle you train. I don't think that it's something that you have or you don't have. I really, really try to, whenever I have an idea, to just make it as quickly as I can. I make a lot of TikToks as well. Some of my social media content is fab and it does very well. Some of it is not good at all. But I'm fine with that. I think it's important to sometimes have eras where you're like, this is just about me getting back into actually creating.
Do you know that thing about fail fast? So like you try and fail as quickly as possible. So like you get past the point of failure really soon.
Yeah.
So that you start something, it's terrible, but then you do it again and it's not as terrible as it was the last time. So I think like fail quicker is often, it's not something I think about a lot, but I think it is really good because it just means that you're not worrying about failure.
Yeah.
And you just kind of,
I like that a lot.
Get past that.
Because it also kind of, what I valued about you being able to use social media to show my work off is almost the exposure therapy of it all. Like once I've shown this thing off, I've shown it off now. Like there's no going back. It's out there now. The next time is going to be easier. I remember when I started posting my makeup looks on Instagram, I was so stressed about doing it. I was so scared about people from school seeing that I was painting myself green. And now I don't think about it at all. But then it was just about like the first time I did it, it was like, oh, okay, well they've seen it now. I can do it again.
But I think in the past we've talked about this a bit before, about doing stuff for approval as opposed to doing stuff authentically and not caring about what other people think.
Yeah.
I think once you can fail quickly, that's the first time, or once you can like sit down and start and eliminate the voices, fail quickly, and then not care about what anyone else thinks of what you're doing. I think that's such a position of strength.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think that everyone can stand to benefit from it. I think about it a lot in terms of having to come out, and it's something that straight people don't have to do, but gay or queer people do have to do. That I'm, in a lot of ways, I'm very grateful that that I'm gay and I had to come out, because it made me have to spend some time looking inward and being like, okay, there's this thing about me that, like, just me existing goes against what I should be doing. That's just the reality of the situation. I now have to...
That even sounds weird coming out of your mouth now, though.
Yeah.
Like, just hearing you say that just doesn't seem like something you would say now.
Yeah, completely true. But at the same time...
It's something you need to go through in the process.
When you first are coming out, you feel like you're completely wrong. Or at least I did, you know. And now it's something I'm so used to. But at the same time, I think that there's the other side to that, which is, I think for a long time, I also overcompensated. I was like, well, I'm gay, so I need to be extra good at these things, or I need to fit in extra much in these ways.
Well, what about when wrong is the most right it can ever be? Because I feel like now sometimes I strive for that. I kind of think, okay, I know what's right. I don't want to do something wrong, because then that's where that for me, that's the start of something creative. About all these other people, they're doing that thing, which is right, and then I'm going to do this thing, which is wrong. So I think there's another thing about like what I'm hearing is there's a voice, or we can all have voices in our heads about like that's good, that's bad, that's right, that's wrong. Oh, I don't want to do things that are right all the time. I want to do like lots of wrong things.
I completely agree. But I'm interested in where that comes from in different people, if that's a thing that everyone kind of can learn, or if some people are more geared like that than others, because not everyone is like that, and that's also fine. You know, some people like to follow creativity because they can, I guess, solve problems more than create them.
Yeah, but I think also sometimes it's about an obstacle that you put in your way to make life more difficult. And that obstacle is not about trying to make everything easy. It's sometimes about trying to make things difficult for yourself. Because I think that can also be where creativity is born, where things are hard, where things are challenging, where you don't have much money, where you don't have much resource, or you don't have space or something. I think that's a good bit of the conversation. I think for that, I hadn't planned talking about that, but I think it's a really good thing to talk about and think about for us all as we go forward. Can we talk about some specific things? Because I'm curious about a couple of pieces that you've recently made that I want to kind of almost retro engineer and go back to the beginning of. The first piece that I saw that really caught my eye with the fingernails with fire. I absolutely love that piece so much. Can you go right back to the beginning and tell me about that and where that idea came from? What's the origin of that?
The very, very origin of the idea, actually, it links to the jumper that I'm wearing right now. If I really, really go all the way back. This is when I just finished art school, and I was like, okay, I kind of knew the direction I wanted to go in. I wasn't necessarily fully confident in it, but I was just trying my best to throw myself at it. And I was just doing like clothes projects, fashion-y projects, and I found this jumper in TK Maxx. And originally I cut the shoulders open, and then I was going to have fabric underneath them, and then that looked really bad. So I decided to stitch them up, and then it looked really nice. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to make some. I was trying to queerify a lot of things that I was making at the time, so I decided to make some nails that match with them. I also have some nails that are black that have the stitching on. That put me in a little bit of a nail era, and I was like, nails are a really, really interesting direction to go. At that time, I was working at a jewelry design place, and they're kind of an interesting intersection between jewelry and accessories and fashion. And so I made the flame nails, I think, were the third set of nails I made. I've always really, really been into flame iconography and visuals.
Where does that come from?
What I think it comes from, I think it's from the sci-fi video games thing. I think there's some very, very iconic scenes from Star Wars which are all about flames. And then there's also the kind of elemental aspect. There's another series which is Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they all have different elements that are their superpowers, and I think that's really exciting. And also, when I was a kid, one of my favourite t-shirts was a skull and crossbones which had flames behind it. And
it's like your heavy metal era.
Yeah, when I was 8 years old. I was obsessed, AC/DC, everything. And I think that they have a very strong visual. I love graphic and geometric shapes, and I think that they are such a strong shape which very clearly communicate exactly what they are. And then with the nails, I was really enjoying making sculptural nails, but I also thought it was something fun about it, having that transformation between kind of crazy nails and then being able to hold it together and being like you're holding a flame. But that also kind of bridges that gap between fantasy and reality, where it's like these are these real objects, but when you hold them in a certain way, it looks like you have some fantasy superpower. And I thought that was really fun. And it was a strong combination of like glamorous, high fashion kind of, and sci-fi campiness almost. Yeah. You know, which are things I very, very much like to combine.
Yeah, okay. And when you're working you make stuff yourself.
Mm.
What does your work setup look like? What's that like now?
So now I have a studio in Brixton, which I share with two other fashion designers, which is really, really fun.
Right.
I was working in my bedroom for a very long time. And interestingly, I'm having a lot of thoughts about this at the moment because I, in a lot of ways, really miss working in my bedroom, which I did not think I was going to feel at all when I moved into a studio space.
Yeah.
The work that I do has been born out of essentially me exploring my interests in quite a solitary way. And now that I'm in this shared space where there's other people looking at me and I can't completely do things in my own way because I don't have access to absolutely everything, it's
The toaster.
the toaster, for example, or like I like to paint myself different colors, and then I'm like, well, I can't do that in the studio because then I don't have all of my makeup set up there, and then I can't shower off straight away, all this kind of stuff, and
that's interesting. So you presumably you were working in your bedroom. Lots of people work on a kitchen table or dining room table or something, and then you thought, right, I need to branch out a little bit because I think a lot of people think that's not a professional space to work in. So you then do that, and that's very interesting. That you feel that it's not at the moment. I mean, you might get used to it, but not quite the right space for you at the moment.
I think it is a thing of getting used to it,
growing into it.
Yeah, but I also think that it's a thing of continuously figuring out exactly what I want the function of the space to be. I still really, really enjoy making content. That's a big part of what I do, and it's harder to do that in the studio space. I keep on finding myself having to go home to do certain things, and that's kind of hard, having that separation between workspaces. And for me, what I do really enjoy about the studio space is that I have all of, like, most of my tools and stuff in one space. I have my sewing machine, I have all my different tools, I have all my different fabrics, and they're generally very, very accessible to me in that space, which I really, really like.
When you're working on, I'm getting a little bit of a picture of the studio. I'm trying to imagine how you work on something that's an idea that starts. Do you go straight into making stuff three-dimensionally? Do you work with sketches? Do you work on a small model? What does your desk look like when you're working on an idea?
So my desk is quite versatile, the space that I built for myself. I have quite a big desk which is on trestles, but the desk can be taken off of the trestles just to be put to the side, and the trestles can be pushed aside so I can have a big open space depending on what I'm working on. I generally just get making as soon as I can. I do sketches generally now if I'm making something for someone else or I need to prove what this idea is going to look like. Then I'll often sketch it out first. But now, if I'm making something for me, I try to just get making as soon as possible. I kind of have a bit of a mindset, which is I just want to make this now. If it's not perfect, it's fine. I'll improve on it in the next thing that I make. So often when I make clothes and stuff, I just start by drawing out the patterns straight onto pieces of fabric, cutting them out, often cutting them out a bit bigger, and then I can always take them in. And that's, kind of the process that I go on. And similar with makeup, I just have an idea. I'm like, I'm just gonna start this now and see where it takes me. I'm also very aware, because I really like making things, I'm very aware that what the idea looks like in my mind is not going to be the same as what it's going to end up looking like. That's why I think making it as quickly as possible is really important.
I remember going through something a bit like that, where I was at the Royal College doing my MA in design products, and I sketched a birdhouse. Then I did another sketch. Then I made a model of it. Then I made a plastic version. Oh no, then I did a rendering, 3D rendering. Then I made a plastic version of it. Then a technical drawing. Then it was sent off actually to a company who made a prototype. And the end prototype looked exactly like the first sketch. And I just remember thinking, that's boring now, because I now know what I'm doing, and this thing was... So I was constantly trying to not put obstacles in my way, but I was not interested in the end thing being exactly like the first thing anymore.
I really, really agree with that. That often, if a project looks exactly as you envisioned it,
something's not right.
It's not actually going to end up looking that interesting. You're going to see it and be like, oh, I didn't just let that flow as I was doing it.
Can I ask you something else about the studio? So presumably, if you now have a client or a customer or somebody that you want to work with, inviting them into a studio must feel a bit more professional.
It does. It
That
does.
must be a good feeling.
Yeah, it definitely does. That feels good about it, because it was always a bit like inviting people to my house. Like, I made a gown for Tia Coffee.
That's what I want to talk about.
Drag queen, and then I invited her into my family home, and it was a bit like, it was fab, because I think what's cool about it is that I love working with people that it's kind of making a personal relationship as well as a work relationship.
Of course.
Especially because a lot of my work is very much for queer people and making individual things for people. I really like to have that relationship with people. But like doing fitting in my bedroom is a bit like, yeah, that I'm not too keen on, really.
Can we talk about the dress you did for the gown, the incredible outfit that you did for Tia Coffee?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about how that idea was born?
So that project is one of my favorites that I've done recently, and in large part it's due to what that process was like. It was a very quick turnover rate. It was like everything was done from the suggestion of it to it being finished in a week.
Great.
And so I went to see Lady Gaga in September, and Tia Coffee was also there, and we were chatting, and she was like, oh, I like the things you've been making, and I was very much like, I'll make you something if you want. She was like, oh, I actually have an idea for something, because she wanted to wear a St. George's flag gown. That was something that she wanted to do.
We need to explain that this is amongst a context in late summer 2025 where St. George's Cross flags were being put up all over the country and being kind of the suggestion was something slightly menacing.
Yeah, they were being used by the far right, I guess, from my perspective, they were being used to kind of used as a symbol of Britain being just for British people and not being for immigrants and not being for people of colour. And yeah, they became quite a scary sight. You saw them a lot around that time, and I always felt a bit unsafe when I saw them, because being someone who...
A flag is super powerful.
Yeah. And being a person of colour whose mum is an immigrant, who's queer, that was always very, very weird to see, because I do feel British. I am British. But also, I'm not just that, you know, and...
But also, I think you can be British and see what that's doing. See the subtle messaging that's giving people who maybe don't feel so British or don't feel welcome, and how much that reinforces something really sinister and menacing.
Completely, especially when the UK is a country that's built on immigration. Like, we would not be where we are without welcoming people from other countries into the country.
So what did you do?
So her original idea was she just wanted a dress which had the flag on it. With the time frame, I initially said, oh, I don't know
if I can do it in a week.
If I can do it in a week. And then we were like, okay, well, maybe we'll just buy like a cheap white dress and paint it on. But then as soon as I started designing it, I very much was like, no, if I'm going to do this, I really want to do this, you know. And I had another commission I was working on at the time, and I spoke to the person I was making the commission for, and luckily that one was due in like a month or two afterwards. So I was like,
a week and a day.
Yeah, we just need to push this one back a tiny bit. And originally I was just going to make a simple white gown, and the kind of idea of it was that it was going to have a shoulder strap that was one of the lines of the St. George's Cross, and then there was another across the shoulder strap, which was the other one, and it was going to kind of be slightly diagonally on the body. Then, as I was making it, so this is the thing, I didn't mock it up before, I just bought the fabric and started sewing it straight away. There was I was like, okay, a train would be really, really fun, and then when I laid the train out, because the angle of the dress was slightly at an angle, because it had a side slit, it meant that a lot of the fabric was going off to one side, and I just thought, okay, this is a really perfect opportunity to actually have the shape of a flag here, because that's the shape that it started making. So the train of the gown is a flag in and of itself. Admittedly, it's a bit difficult to walk in and keep the shape of that flag, but when it's all laid out, it looks really, really fantastic. And but also I think there's something quite fun about it being all crumpled and creased with the movement, and that's really what I was trying to do as well when I spray painted the shape of it on, because I really like spray painting with the super geometric shapes, because it kind of has that
softness and like, yeah,
it looks like it's been made, you know. And I think that this was a piece that was made as a collaboration between two queer POC British people, and I wanted it to look like it had been made, you know. And especially with the sprays of red, they could connote different things, but I liked that it was slightly like a blood splatter, at the same time as looking like something that had been made and graffitied.
Can I ask you something about that piece? In this process of idea, then sort of translating it into something wearable, into something that's got these incredible details on it, was there a moment in that where you had doubts, or I suppose another way of asking that question is, were you immediately like, yes, that's the right idea?
No, absolutely not. I had doubts.
Oh,
I had doubts. Actually, originally, we designed it with a purse that said vote green on it. And it was going to say vote in red and then green in green. And I made it. And then we decided at the last minute not to include it because it felt a bit like an apology for the dress. I think that we were very like, we don't want it to seem like we're promoting the far right. So we need to have this thing that proves that we're actually on the side of the good guys. But yeah, it felt like we weren't fully confident in the idea if we were to include that. And it also made it seem a bit, the way that it had been designed looked a bit campy almost, and I think that it took away the kind of seriousness and some of the elegance of this dress when there was this like big purse that said vote green on it.
You know, it's so interesting to hear that, because the moment I saw that image, everything kind of like slotted into place.
Yeah.
Timing, the fact that Tia Coffee was wearing it, the craft of the dress, the detail of the dress, the power of the dress, all slotted into place.
Yeah.
And it looked like, of course that's what it is. And like, why didn't I think of that? And like, incredible subversion of something really political and difficult being kind of redone in this really imaginative kind of, also really powerful way. And it's really interesting to hear that there were moments where you were like, is this the right thing?
Yeah.
Should we be doing? Because from the outside, it's just like, wow.
Yeah. But we completely had doubts about it because at that time, that flag was so divisive. It's already kind of dissipated a little bit now, but it had such a strong and clear meaning. And we were worried about getting backlash on it. But we were also kind of like, this is the right kind of thing to get backlash on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, in hindsight, I think that all the decisions really made so much sense with each other, but it was quite a big decision to make in the moment. But really glad about it. Tia Coffee as well is the only POC winner of Drag Race UK, and I think that her legacy and presence within the world of drag and also politically is really, really, really important. And I was really, really glad to
everything just like gelled and coalesced. Exactly right, I think. Yeah, well done for that, I think.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The last question I want to ask you really is about block and about whether, you know, I'm hearing about a designer that's starting, growing in confidence, growing wings, moving premises to somewhere slightly bigger, get better profile, all those kind of things. Do you think with that comes some pressure of like, and we sort of talked about it a bit earlier about what if the next thing isn't as good as that thing? Do you have a problem sometimes with block, creative block?
I do. I can put a lot of pressure on myself. Yeah. For sure. And I think I can often get quite roped in or maybe lose sight of why specifically I'm doing things, what made me interested or intrigued by this in the beginning. I've had a really, really exciting last year, and I've been on a TV show and I've gotten a lot more exposure than I've ever really had before. But I think with that has come a lot of attention on things that I didn't necessarily expect to get lots of attention on them. For example, I've been praised very heavily for a lot of my fashion this year, and I've loved that. It's especially funny because I've had such a kind of complicated relationship with fashion throughout my life, where I had a point where I wore black jeans and a white t-shirt every day for years because I was so scared to stand out, and now I'm being praised as a very like fashionable person. But I think that, for example, made me focus very, very, very hard on things being purely fashion. Whereas I kind of forgot a little bit about, but why did I get into making and designing looks in the first place? I got quite burnt out a few months ago after just working very, 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 very hard all summer, and I took a bit of time off. And honestly, what I did in that time was I played loads of video games. I really did.
Back to the source.
Back to the source. I played so many games, more games than I had done in years, and it has been wonderful. And I feel like I've come back into it, and I have loads of really, really fun ideas now. I think that a thing as well, that now that I've been doing what I've been doing for quite a while, I can see the peaks and troughs and how that kind of levels out into a bigger journey rather than getting caught up in each individual stage too much. And for example, I was gaining quite a lot of success on my TikTok videos, very consistent engagement. But the thing that comes with getting very consistent engagement is you put loads of pressure on yourself to stay within that. And even if then you get way less views on a few TikToks, it can really, it really, really affected me, because I was sort of, I've done so well here and now I'm not. And then over the last 2-3 weeks, I didn't post for a while, and then I've got back into it. And now I'm really I'm purposefully not trying to do really, really well right now. I'm just making whatever I want to make. And that's allowing me, it feels like it's allowing me to get back into my creativity more. I think to build up a kind of creative output in a consistent way in the long term, it can't be too dictated about each thing's individual success, because then it becomes quite exhausting. That's constantly what you're making your decisions based on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that balance of, this does have a purpose, but it has to be like a relief to make this thing, rather than it feel like a really, really tense thing to do. But that being said, in a way, it's almost making me sound like I have this stuff really, really figured out. It's a constant learning thing.
Absolutely.
It's a constant learning thing. Oh my God, yeah. And I feel really confident about it sometimes, and then sometimes I'm also really, really what am I doing? What am I doing? What is the life I'm building for myself? I have no idea.
Well, that's, I think, quite reassuring to hear, because I think not everybody, gets ever to a point where they've got it figured out. Yeah. So, I don't think, if it doesn't ever come where you think, I really know what I'm doing, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just before we finish, I've got some this or that rapid fire for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so pencil or marker?
Marker. I love a marker. Yeah. Very bold, very graphic, and you can't rub it out, which I like.
So good.
Yeah.
Analog or digital?
Ooh. You know what? Analog, because actually I don't know if this is, but old retro Nintendo consoles for me are the peak of technology as we know it. Old Game Boys, which I guess are kind of digital, but yeah, that's my answer.
Okay.
Old Game Boys.
Monochrome or colourful?
Can I say duochrome?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
I like colours paired with black or paired with white.
Yeah. Big sketches or little sketches?
I like little sketches.
Loose sheets or pages in a sketchbook?
Loose sheets. Yeah.
Keep mistakes or bin mistakes?
Keep mistakes, but I guess be selective of the mistakes. No, keep them. That's the simple answer.
Think then do, or do then
do then think. 100%. 100%.
Creative chaos or calm order?
Creative chaos. To be honest with you, I think that calm order comes from it, as a bigger picture, comes from a smaller picture of creative chaos.
Background noise or silence?
Background noise. I listen to so much Mario Kart music when I'm doing work.
Finished or never finished?
Never finished. Never finished.
And lastly, all-nighter or up early?
All-nighter. Down. I can get between the time of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. I can get more work done than I could ever do during the day. It's I don't love it for myself, but I'm just being authentically myself.
Okay, very good. Ruben, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I do have one thing left, and it's a small gift for you.
And it's an R. See, the only thing about this is that I love red. and I love green. Don't really love them together because it gives either stuffed olive or Christmas. But in this in this case, I'm still
I just had to work with what I had.
Oh my god!
I couldn't figure out how to get the right time, but apart from that, all working.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah. You're dead already.
I'm dead already. I've played this game in many iterations, but not this one specifically. This is a Game & Watch Donkey Kong. Game & Watch were actually what Nintendo created before they ever made any handheld consoles or anything. So they were made for... Actually, the story behind them is... Turn this off now.
I think that's it. I think you have to die 3 times before you...
Very primitive technology.
Put down here with clicking.
So I said the first DS. So the person who created the original Game Boy saw a businessman playing with his calculator on the train back from being in work during rush hour in Tokyo, and he realized that there was a need for handheld games, and then he created the Game & Watch, which had both a watch function and a mini game within it to cater towards those kind of people, and that's where handheld gaming came from.
Thank you to my guest, Ruben Bø Dower, on this episode of The Empty Canvas. Please like and subscribe, and maybe share this with somebody you think needs a bit of a nudge on their own creative journey. I'll see you in the next episode.